Yeah, Bill, one thing that I do that enables me to be more time efficient and keep a high quality of training because I have very serious goals is, and this is obviously a privileged place to be in, but I have a home gym that I use 2 to 3 times per week. And you're thinking, why wouldn't you just go right downstairs and do it? Well, I also have a membership at the AUT gym, and that's only a 10-minute walk away. um, on that 10-minute walk. I've got emails to do. I've got DMs to listen to. I've got voice messages to listen to. I've got voice messages to send. And it's just good to get steps, right? So I have a goal of getting, I think, between 8 and 9,000 steps per day minimum. So if I was just going into my home gym, it would be almost impossible for me to get to that. And I'm not losing anything by walking. In fact, there's data showing it's good to get out in nature. Obviously, it's good to get the steps. That's why I have a step count. And there is work that I can do on that walk that is not going to stress me out before I get to the gym. It's not going to distract me. I can, separate it in my mind. So once I hit the gym, I'm ready to, put my phone on airplane mode and get the tunes going. I'm ready to rock. And at the gym, I can be more time efficient. I can do everything I need to do in my home gym. I have a dual cable stack that converts into a rack. I have adjustable dumbbells up to 40 kilos or 88 pounds, and I have a adjustable squat and bench. I have a back extension machine, and I have a converted leg press hack squat that can be either one. I truly could just train in my home anytime I needed to and get a highly efficient workout in and be sacrificing very little. But if I wanted to go from doing a lat pull down to like a shoulder press, or if I wanted to go and like some of the supersets require me to do a lot of adjusting of my equipment, you know,
Hmm.
um, and it's very difficult to have room to do, say, a lower body compound with something else in my gym. So the same workout takes longer in my home gym, but I don't have to walk anywhere or go anywhere. So I could take advantage of that. So currently, because I'm trying to do a really high volume protocol, I'm doing 20 to 30 sets for almost all of my muscle groups, Bill. So
Brutal.
yeah, but I love it. Now, here's the thing about doing that amount of work. We're primarily pitching this podcast to people who are looking like the two examples you gave. I've got 1 or 2 hours per week to train. How can I make this work? Another time it's really useful to have time efficient techniques is when if you didn't use the time efficient techniques, you would have 15 hours of training per week. And let's say, oh, I don't know, you've got like 3 jobs like I do. You're
Yep.
writing for mass, you're trying to write the third edition of your books, you have some clients with 3DMJ, you do 2 to 3 podcasts per week, and you have, a handful of PhD and master students, you have responsibilities at AUT, you're the lab manager. I am a very, very busy person who does a lot, and a lot of things that I care about, that I'm passionate about, and that impact the lives of other people, right? So I can't do 30 sets per week if I was just to do straight sets, listen to music, talk to people. I have to be on my P's and Q's. So it kind of blows people's minds because I train right now. My current setup that I found is the best combination of recovery, stimulus, and time efficiency. Believe it or not, I train 9 times, Bill. So I
Hmm.
train daily. And then on 2 of those days, I come in the morning and I either go to the AUT gym that I can walk to in 10 minutes, or I train at home. In fact, in one case, I do that in the afternoon and I do the other training at the gym. And I do some things that I can do in my home gym or I do there. So as an example, on Thursdays, I actually drive to the shore. I train at the AUT North Campus gym with my good buddy, Dr. Matt Cross. We train 3 times a week together. And then my other 6 sessions I do on my own. That morning, what I will do, even though, Thursday around 4 p.m., we'll be hitting an upper body session. That morning, I get in leg press, calf raise, and leg extensions at the UT City Gym. And then I get myself a solid 6 hours of recovery and I go and I do upper body with Matt. Likewise, on Saturday, what I will do is I will go to the gym and I will get in lower body, quads, calves, leg extensions again, as well as some rows and lat pull downs. And then that evening at my home gym, I will do incline bench, close grip bench press, and lateral raises. And then I have another day where I have the option to do that if needed. So I'm able to basically take what would be an extremely grueling individual session and break it up into two so I can maintain a higher quality. And I'm not losing too much on time because I'm using all these efficiency techniques we talked about and is either downstairs or a 10-minute walk where I can work anyway. So I am trying to be the combination of as effective and as efficient as possible. And unless you just have a tremendous amount of free time, um, that is typically what you need to do if you're on either end of the bell curve. If you're a competitive athlete trying to get as much done as possible, or if you are a busy person trying to get the most out of a limited amount of time, these techniques are both really useful in both scenarios.
Yeah, that's what I really like about this kind of knowledge is that it applies to everyone. I think everyone can use the time efficiency there. And then talking about people who are really short on time and may not be operating in ideal conditions, how does proximity to failure change for those people?
Yeah, one thing you can do, and this is just a more of an overall approach, is just simply choose to do a lower volume and train with the highest intensity you can within those volume
Mhm.
constraints, right? So let's say you've got somebody who's only got 2 hours a week. I'm not going to tell them to do 15 to 25 sets,
Mhm.
per muscle group. I'll tell them to try to see if they can get 5 to 10, maybe 8 to 12 if they want to use some of these techniques which save time. And then every set should be going to momentary failure on exercise where they feel safe to do so and they have a spotter. And then in sets where it's not, then they want to get as close to that as they feel comfortable. So this ensures that every single set is as effective as it can be. Um, so I think that's basically the goal is when you have a low amount of quantity, you need to put a lot of effort into the quality. So you're making sure that you have a full range of motion. You're making sure that to reach into those lengthened positions of each exercise, you want to have very good exercise selection. And there's something to be talked about there as well. Certain exercises are inherently less time efficient than
Mm.
others. And I on paper, if you wanted to make low volume as efficient as possible, you would want to choose the most effective exercises, and you wouldn't need to worry quite as much about how quote unquote fatiguing they are because you're not doing very much volume. So you don't have much to recover from. So if there is an exercise that might be slightly more effective, but it wouldn't fit well into a high volume protocol because you got to train that same muscle group a day or 2 days later with a low volume protocol, you're only going to be able to induce so much fatigue. So why not take the most stimulative exercise independent of how much fatigue it's going to generate? But if you're really searching for time efficiency, then you're probably going to choose machines over free weight because the selectorized machine is quite easy. You don't need as many warm up sets to kind of get a groove for it. And you're going to choose probably dumbbells over barbells just so you don't have to put a plate and a clip on there and walk around the gym and find stuff. You're going to make some concessions on exercise selection just to be time efficient. You're not going to do a hip thrust, right? You're not going to get all the aerobic blocks and the pad to set up a jury rigged seal row or hip thrust at a gym that
Mhm.
doesn't have it, right? You're going to do, all right, let me do a 45-degree back extension, right? So those types of decisions are also coming into play here. When you're talking about someone who is restricted on time and doing low volume, then you kind of have to see, okay, what are the most time efficient exercises that I can do that don't compromise the stimulus? And then if I have enough time, okay, then what on paper would be the ideal exercise? Okay, now I'm going to also then take those as close to failure as I safely can.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I like what you were saying about how when you're really short on time, you have a bit more freedom with exercise selection because fatigue isn't that big of a deal since if you're only training twice a week, you're going to have plenty of time to recover between those workouts. So it makes sense to put in the exercise that have maximum stimulus and not worrying so much about other factors.